Thanks, Amanda. So I graduated in 2008, arguably the most difficult time to enter the job market. That argument usually happens with people who graduated in 2009. I had five roommates in college. All of them were very smart, driven, dedicated, and destined for success. The only problem was none of us could get a job. Three of us decided we were going to go on to higher education. One was going to law school. Two of us were getting our MBAs. One of my friends decided, no more tuition and loans for me. I'm going to wait tables and send out resumes. And one of our friends was set. He had already signed on the dotted line to work for a financial institution in Manhattan. And while I was sending out my resume, he was busy getting custom suits made for his new job. That job was at Lehman Brothers. And 2 months after graduation, he was the best-dressed guy interviewing for jobs. That hit close to home with me. And that's when I decided that I was going to become an entrepreneur. I wanted to take my fate into my own hands. Now, I'm rarely the smartest guy in the room, so I knew that I wasn't probably going to have $1 billion idea, but I did know that throughout my career, I would be presented with opportunity. This is not a lecture about success. This is a story about how I used processes to help really create habits to prepare myself for those opportunities, so that when they came to me, I would have the confidence to go for them and ultimately succeed. Little housekeeping before we get going. I'm going to ask some questions throughout this. Don't worry, I'm not going to call on anybody, but I do ask that if it applies to you, you raise your hand, maybe give me a thumbs up. I would appreciate that. That would be great. Number 2, I'm going to mention Chris a lot during this. For those of you who don't know, Chris Dessy is my boss. He's a mentor. He's a friend. Chris gave a great presentation last night where he called himself a loser. That's his opinion. In my opinion, Chris is a winner. Chris is the catalyst of change in my life. I wouldn't be the person I am today professionally or personally if it wasn't for Chris, and I certainly wouldn't be on this stage. So thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. So, thank you. So when talking about opportunity, there's always an elephant in the room. And those are the 2 F's. It's fear and failure. I'm going to start with failure. So I did end up getting a job at Jackson Lewis. It's a big law firm. I was working my 9 to 5. I was about 22. And I decided, entrepreneur, I was going to start my own business with my friend Mikey. We'll get more on Mikey later. The business was called Sports Fan Dreams, and it was fatally flawed from the beginning. I wasted too much time and too much money on this concept. I eventually pulled the plug. Fail. Loser. Not so fast. I learned a lot from this experience. I learned that you can't half-ass starting a business. I learned that you need to put your all into it. You need to have some knowledge of what you're doing ahead of time. And what this really gave me was reverence for the whole process of building a business. That reverence is something that I use every day now that I'm part of a great team who's doing just that. We're building a business. Sarah Blakely, CEO of Spanx, a product I'm not too familiar with, but an entrepreneur who I really enjoy her story. Her father used to ask her, Sarah, what did you fail at this week? And people say, whoa, that's kind of negative. And I say, whoa, way to go, Dad. Great question. See, failure in the Blakely household wasn't the outcome. Failure was not trying. He was encouraging Sarah to step outside of her box. And all these years later, it really paid off for her. Now we're going to talk about fear. And I think Lisa, I know you're here somewhere, Lisa did a great job of talking about fear this morning. A lot of times we create fear, especially our own fear of failure. Has anyone here ever been in a situation where you had a meeting or you were in a room where the level of conversation was just way above you? It happens to me all the time, so it's okay. It's happened to me like 5 times since I've been here. Happened to me my first week at Jackson Lewis. I was in a meeting with all of these attorneys, and they were managing partners, and I walked out of it, and I was like, yikes, can I do this? I was questioning myself. It happened to me 3 months ago at Rebel Mouse headquarters. Chris is going to smile at this one. We had a half-an-hour meeting where I don't think I understood one thing that was being talked about. I was like a deer in headlights. Chris had to say something, give me a little pep talk afterwards just so I could come back to life. Amanda, our first conversation 2 years ago, I don't know if you remember, but we were both creating something. I was in the process of creating the Westchester Digital Summit, and Amanda was in the process of creating this great event that we're here at today. And her background was so impressive. And in talking to her, I could feel the passion. And I knew when I hung up that phone, 100% that she was going to succeed. I wasn't so sure about myself. Let's talk about something a little more positive. Let's talk about victories. My man Johnny Drama with the victory. People think victory, they think big. They think Miracle on Ice. They think Rocky IV. The truth is, victories and success can be much more granular. Who here has a morning routine? I have a morning routine. It's nothing special. I wake up, brush my teeth, try to do some sort of physical activity, come home, I make breakfast, I eat that breakfast. I shower, I get dressed, I get in my car, I like to listen to audiobooks, so I put it on an audiobook, and I get to work. Now to me, that's anywhere from 5 to 7 successes that I've had before I even get to work in the morning. You say, John, everyone's supposed to shower. Well, not everyone does. It's a fact. It's a fact. Yeah. You know, does anyone here, people here have kids, right? Some people here have kids. Chris has 2 amazing daughters, a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. So Chris and his wife every morning, they're responsible for not only getting themselves ready, but for getting their daughters ready also. So Chris rolls into the office with, anywhere from 12 to 15 successions before the day has even started. There are, of course, bumps in the road. There was the morning that Chris was a little bit late. The blender exploded all over his white shirt. But even that morning, Chris succeeded a whole lot more than he failed. Let's talk about lists. Does anyone here make lists? I love lists. It's like an Anchorman when Brick says, I love lamp. I love lists. I really do. Told you I was going to talk a little more about Mikey. In college, I would go up to Mikey every Thursday night, and Mikey's brilliant. He's an author now. He's a professor. At the time, he was a Division I basketball player. But he was the biggest procrastinator I've ever seen. He was so unorganized, it was unbelievable. He just made me itch. I hate it. I'm a logistics guy, so I couldn't deal with that. So I'd go in on Thursday, and I'd be all excited. We'd be going out. I'd say, Mikey, time to start getting ready. And he'd go, John, I can't. I've got 5 classes that I'm behind on the work. I didn't watch my basketball video. I didn't do my loan applications for next semester. There's no way I can go. So I was a little dejected, but I got it. So I'd go back to my room, and religiously, half an hour later, Mikey would come in, dressed, ready to go. I'd say, Mikey, I'm sure you didn't do anything that you were supposed to do. And he goes, it's cool, dude, I made a list. And I was like, I got it. Because we're all over the place. We all have a ton of things going on. But when you make a list, you wrap management around those things. You list them down, and you say, I can complete this. I can attack this list. I make lists weekly, monthly, really sometimes daily. Chris and I sit about this close to each other at work. A lot of times, I'm old school, pen and pad. I like to write my list down. I cross them out. I get excited. A lot of times, I'll reach up and I'll high-five Chris, and he'll high-five me, and he'll say, why are we high-fiving? And I'll say, Chris, I don't know if you noticed, but I just crossed something off my list. And he'll get it, and we'll go back to work. All of those things that we're crossing off on that list, they're little successes in our life. This is one of my favorite quotes. I have it written on a whiteboard in my house. Creating habits. So when I was at Jackson Lewis, I was working the 9 to 5 thing, and I had my morning routine down, and I'd work hard in those hours I was there. And then after work, I'd try to do other habits that would help me in my career. So what did I do? I'd read for an hour every night. I would go to networking events. I would meet new people. I would ask a lot of questions. I would listen to webinars. I would do anything I could that could help me bridge the gap between those really smart people that I was having the meetings with and myself. What started happening after a while is I was creating these habits, and my career was starting to take off. I was getting more responsibility at work. 2 years in, I got promoted to be a manager. Later that year, we created a new group, the sports and collegiate group and professional and collegiate sports group, and I was named the head of it. I was running our biggest client event at the time. Our firm asked me to sit on a task force to help totally revamp their digital presence. And I started to realize that all of these things were happening because I was succeeding a little bit every day, and I was gaining confidence. This little cycle is something that really hit home for me. I was creating a habit of success. I was mentally preparing myself so that no matter what challenge came up, I would succeed. And you say, all right, why were you doing that? Well, because in my mind, I was thinking entrepreneur. I was thinking, do the right thing, keep learning, keep succeeding, because ultimately opportunity is going to come to you, and you're going to be ready for it. So I was following this cycle. Then something happened. Opportunity came to me. So here's a good one. We're going to start having fun now. Who here has been dumped before? Anybody? A lot of hands. So last May of 2012, I was dumped on a Monday. That next Tuesday, I was doing it right. Why? I had my routine. When you're building your confidence, no matter what happens to you in life, you find a way to persevere through. So I woke up, I did my routine, got to work, looked at my calendar, and 12 noon, I had a lunch with a guy named Chris Dessy. Get to lunch, I'm there before Chris, because he's a little late usually, I'm just saying. And Chris comes in, and the first thing he does is he compliments my watch. Happens to be the watch I'm wearing right now. And I said, thanks a lot. I said, actually, my girlfriend gave this to me, and she dumped me yesterday. And in my mind, I'm like, last time he compliments me ever. But a great thing happened after that. Chris and I spent the next 55 minutes not talking about business. We talked about life. He gave me some advice. He told me his stories. He told me about his family, about his kids. And he was really normal and human, and we had a great conversation and connection. And after that, I wanted to help Chris. He didn't ask me to help him. I wanted to. So what did I do? I introduced my director of marketing and one of our other directors to him. We went to one of the events that he was working on, and we stayed in touch for the next few months. Ultimately, I invited him down to the event I was running in Pinehurst, North Carolina. And on November 14th, I was running an event, and I got a voicemail from Chris. And he was so excited. And that got me excited. So I stepped out of the room, and I gave him a call back, and he said, John, he said, I have this great idea for the Westchester Digital Summit. I brought it up to my old business partner, and he was like, that's going to be a lot of work. And I want you to come and help me. I have the contacts. I can bring the people there. I know how it's going to look. I need some event logistics help. And I said yes so fast that I don't even know what I did. I was just like, yep, definitely, I'm in. Let's do it. He was excited. I was excited. Put down that phone, and fear started to creep in. Now, I'm working a lot of hours. I already had my promotion, and I'm like, wow, can I do this? I was like, I don't know. And at that point, I introduced Chris to my father. My father became a co-partner on the event, and now I'm like, wow, if I fail at this, not only am I bringing Chris down, I'm bringing my family down, and our names attached to this. And a lot of things were going through my head, but what did I do? I stuck to my process. I kept learning. I kept succeeding. And 5 months later, on May 15th, 2013, we had over 500 people in Westchester, New York for the first Westchester Digital Summit. We had executives from Facebook, IBM, Ogilvy, huge companies. We had Gary Vaynerchuk keynote. And that day, Chris looked over to me and he said, one day you're going to be my CMO. I said, that would be really cool. October 7th, 2013, my first day at Silverback Social. Everyone's like, that's cool. Chris said you're going to be a CMO, and then you became it. Not that easy. I had a lot to think about. I was jumping from a good, well-paying job. I was going to take a pay cut. The benefits weren't going to be the same. There was no infrastructure that I was used to. I didn't have a team around me. I was going to be the second oldest, second most experienced employee. We were really building something from scratch. A lot of thought had to go into that. But I was just making that dramatic because I knew from the second he asked that I was going to do it. Because that was the opportunity that I was waiting for my whole life. And let me tell you now, it was the best decision I ever made. Every day is fun. Every day is exciting. I'm meeting so many new people. Everyone here can consider themselves one of those people. I'm learning a lot. I'm challenged. And every day, I'm succeeding, even if it's just in my morning routine. So I'm going to leave you with this. It's a little infograph. And Lisa, you also nailed the point about wealth today. This describes it as people who are wealthy having over $3.2 million. Wealth is really whatever you make of it. That's not what I make of it. But these are some of the things that I went through in my life to help get me here. I learned to love to read. I listened to audiobooks. I set goals for myself. I tried to create a healthy lifestyle. All these things helped me build my confidence. Now, a lot of you have seen these things before. I was at a lecture this past Tuesday. It was something that hit home to me. One of my business mentors was presenting, and he told a story. CEO of a global billion-dollar company flew his 30 top earners in for a little business retreat. So he's lecturing them the first night, and they have recommended reading every month. And he's lecturing them on the importance of the recommended reading. So they take a break. They go into the restroom, and this is just how the story goes. And afterwards, they're washing their hands, and one of the rainmakers, one of the top 30 earners, goes up to him. And he says, boss, he says, you flew us all out here. We all know that we're supposed to be doing the reading. Why don't we cover some other things? And the boss looked at him and said, I'll stop talking about the reading when I know you're all doing it. So we all know a lot of the things that we should be doing in our lives, but we need to really challenge ourselves to do it. So if you're up here and you're watching me present and you're like, man, I'm old enough to be this guy's parent, or I'm younger and I'm more successful than him, that's fine. But I know for sure that in the next week, the next month, the next year, you're going to have an opportunity present itself to you. And I know that you're going to want to be prepared to have the confidence to forget the fear of failure and to take that opportunity and run with it. Now, I'm not a betting man, but we are in Vegas. So I'll tell you this. I bet that when you do take that opportunity and you do run with it, that it will be a success. Because at the end of the day, all you know how to do is succeed. Thank you.